It's an event, and you're doing it for people that are suffering. The Dragon Ride 2024, and it was the most organized event when it comes to cycling I've ever done. My lower back was really aching a lot. At some point to the event, I was standing up deliberately just to take off the pressure on my back. So for the psychologically, I was nervous going down all the hills.
Oh, Chris, welcome back.
How are you doing? Nice to connect with you again.
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
Seems like it's only been an hour ago since we were talking about the CWPT business plans, etc.
Yeah. So,
How's everything?
yeah, well, it's very good. I mean, how's your vacation with the family and everyone there?
Great. I'm really excited to talk about the Dragon event also, which I'm very proud and privileged to be Welsh, to be honest. First of all, as you know, I did the Dragon Ride 2024, and it was the most organized event when it comes to cycling I've ever done. From the minute I registered, there was updates consistently through the email, right away giving me some tips and advice on how to cycle the event, how to navigate your way around the corners, how to prepare for the hills, nutritional advice right the way up. Obviously, as we spoke last time, I also mentioned that I would use the time while I was flying back home to really sit down and start to plan my strategy for the ride. And what I thought about doing, because I wrote down all the hills and the percentages, etc., is cutting out a piece of paper and sticking it to my bike. When I got back to Wales, to my mum's, and my registration envelope came, there was actually a stick out of all the hills and the rides that I could put on my bike exactly where I wanted to get. The entire event was just run beautifully. So many people. The feed stops were just like an abundance of gels, bars, potatoes. It just really incredible. I'm so proud, like I said, even to the point where, this is my medal right here, which I received when I come across the finish line, which we can talk about how the event went. And a day later in the post, I received a piece of metal to go on the back with my name engraved and my actual time. They went that far, and even followed with emails on recovery tactics and tools. So I'm really proud and privileged to be Welsh, because it obviously is a Welsh event and it's not a biased opinion. I would encourage anybody to do the Dragon Ride. And then obviously I went back home. We spent time with the family, with friends. I cycled most of some of the mountains and hills and a lot of the places I grew up in, which was incredible. It was the first time in 7 years where we had gone home and it wasn't in winter time. It was actually the beginning of summer. So the amount of greenery and nature and just the life really in general, birds chirping, things rustling in the woods. And then it was my son's birthday, so he was 2, so we got to celebrate that with friends, family. He got to spend that along with his cousins. I had the best time really. We had a lot of clients sign up as well. A lot of clients still, doing fantastically well. I was monitoring their progress, and I enjoyed the trip so much. I actually booked the same event for next year, but the bigger kind of distance and the more grueling course. And we plan to be back home in Wales for my son's 3rd birthday next year. It was really that good. It's such a good time. One of the best vacations, holidays, traveling experiences I think I've had. And everything comes with a cost. Everything comes with a sacrifice. So there was a lot of that also. But to sum it up in one word, I would probably say perfect.
That's great. Actually, it's very interesting. I mean, for the first thing you mentioned about the race and like, I mean, I've searched about it, and it says that is one of like the toughest and also one of the biggest cycling event in UK. So I mean, this level of professionalism it's expected, and like you said, you were I mean explaining they really didn't disappoint. So yeah, that's really great. And also, I mean, it's perfect when you said like talking about family and spending time with them. It's always a bless. So yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that you have a chance to change a little bit from the weather of Dubai, always hot, and to green star like forest and stuff. It's really impressive. Like, so I mean, I'm interested now more to know about the events. Since you can you tell me like, I mean, your experience of the event itself, the cycling, and what motivates you to take like this event?
So first of all, like I said, it's one of the biggest challenges that I came across, and it's on my own town in Wales. There's a lot of climbing. I mean, you can't go anywhere in Wales without going up a hill or down a hill. It's literally hills everywhere. So that was attractive to me, knowing that it was going to be a challenge. Obviously, going back home, now that I'm into cycling and being able to cycle in my home country was very attractive. And also I was inspired to raise some money for charity. So there's a charity organization that helps support people with cancer. And me helping raise money and doing this event, which I would do anyway, but it definitely gave me more motivation from my training. And even on the day, it gave me a lot more incentive to push, because, some of us are less fortunate to have that opportunity. We don't know when our last breath is going to be taken. So that was a big motivation for me. The event itself, I mean, I I prepared myself well. I worked with a cycling coach. I prepared myself very well. I went through a good few months of sweet spot training. So for those who don't know, working around 88 to 94% of kind of FTP, functional threshold power. And I did blocks of this. So I was, you know, my coach was getting me used to working in this kind of phase, I guess I should say, or this kind of intensity duration. And then I also did a lot of thresholds, so working at my critical power. And that served me like tremendously well. It was the first time, probably in 6 months, if I'm just going to guesstimate, since the last competition, when I tested my ability. There was a lot of climbs. So some climbs would go on for 3 minutes, some would be 1 minute, some would be 20 minutes, some would be 30 minutes. So doing these block intervals definitely give me a sustained amount of power. Um, I spent probably 2 hours after the event just shocked. That was the truth. I'm like, I couldn't believe my performance. And I just couldn't believe how well things went. I had so much power. I was powering up the hills, and I haven't done hills like that before. I thought that I would be getting to the end of the event kind of really suffering, and I wasn't. I was able to like really empty myself for the last 20 kilometers. I was like powering towards the finish line. Even when I saw the finish line, I was able to generate a really well-powered sprint. I had a normalized watt average of 230 watts, which is great for me for 7.5 hours. And my power sprint to the end was over 1,000 watts, which is great after all that duration. And it's just a kind of an indicator that all the training I've been doing has definitely improved my aerobic capacity, because I come from more of an anaerobic background. I'm quite explosive and powerful in the short kind of durations. But when it comes to the long durations and also generating that power after some time is where I've kind of fallen short. But the training I've been doing has definitely served that. I attribute it to these three factors. One, the training specifically I was doing. The other factor is I really kind of carved up very well the day before. I had 150 grams of carbs pretty much every 2 hours. I was aiming for 900 grams of carbohydrates from all good sources like oats, rice, fruit, pasta even, which I don't really eat pasta much. And even on the day of the competition in the morning, I made sure I had 450 grams of carbohydrates before the event. And then during the event, I was consuming 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour. And like I said, although I packed my back, I had dates, I had gels, I had kind of electrolytes and carbohydrate powders in my shakers or my bottles. The food stops had an abundance of these things. So I was able to really fuel well. And the third factor, obviously, I mentioned the training I've been doing and the fueling very well, was the climate. I've been used to training in Dubai in the heat, and my body's adapted to that. So when I went back to Wales and the weather condition was perfect, it was a little bit cold on the top of the mountains. It was a little bit wet sometimes, but it was dry generally and quite cool. It was like perfect weather for the event, and that definitely enabled me to continue to power and work hard. And like I said, I was blown away. I learned many things about cycling whilst I was on the vent. Like I learned when I should push to my VO2 max. My VO2 max is around 370-ish watts. So, when the hills were around 3 minutes, and my head unit would tell me how roughly long the hill would be, I would go, okay, I'll hold that VO2 max. When the hills were shorter, like a 1 minute power hill, then I would power up it. And when the hills were longer, like say 10 minutes, I knew that I could hold like a sweet spot. And then when the hills were 30 minutes, I would go into my threshold. Now, I know this might not make sense to you because you might not know where these kind of zones are. But the point is that I learned a lot, and all the training I've been doing previously, it all come together. I understood why I'm doing VO2 max work, why I'm doing sweet spot and threshold. So it was a really incredible experience. It gave me great confidence moving forward into the preparation for the World Championships in 8 weeks' time. Not to win the World Championships. Not that I'm saying that I would like to do that, but a case of the training and the fueling strategy, and just knowing how to use these different zones at different times allows me to go into an event like this with a lot more confidence in how I'm going to run the course. So yeah, great.
I mean, that's really interesting that I mean, at the end, you come up with that feeling that you feel that you really did great. I mean, but obviously that all explained since I know you personally, and I know how hard you train and how disciplined you are in your nutrition and your endurance training and everything. So, I mean, obviously somehow it's an expected result of all that training and you did, and all that, I mean, preparation for the such big event. Also, Chris, like I know your background very well as a bodybuilder champion, and also you are a coach, a transformation coach right now. How all that helps in the preparation for your cycling like training and in this event specifically?
So one of the disadvantages I have coming from a kind of bodybuilding background, it also works as an advantage, but because of my muscle mass is big still, especially my legs, because I'm doing a lot of cycling, so my legs are maintaining a lot of size, where my upper body, although I'm still very big compared to the average cyclist, compared to the average person, probably still carrying a lot of muscle mass. But in my legs, they've generated a lot of lactate. So there's a lot of lactate acid. So my legs burn out a lot, and they need a lot of fuel. So that's kind of held me back previously because, my legs would just blow out. You think about if the volume of space is bigger and there's more lactic acid being released, then the intensity of that feeling is going to be more than if the volume space was lower or smaller. So that's definitely hindered my endurance previously. However, I have been doing, around 14, 15 hours of cycling a week. I have been doing long, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hour rides previously. So I've endured a lot of conditioning for these type of events. The other benefit, one of the benefits that I have with the muscle mass also is that I can store a lot of energy within the muscle. So I consume a lot. Like I said the day before, I carved it very well. And my muscles hold on to a lot of muscle glycogen. Obviously, bodybuilding is a sport where you're often enough either under eating, because you're trying to get as shredded as you can. You're trying to get fat around or from around your bum, which you probably had since you were a baby. And also, there's other times where you're trying to be as big and as strong as you can. So that requires you to eat a lot more than you would want to. And there have been times throughout my bodybuilding career where I'd be waking up in the morning to have a meal. And I don't mean like 6 a.m., I mean 2:30 a.m. every day I'd be waking up to eat. So I can consume a lot of food, which is an advantage when it comes to a sport that burns so many calories. I mean, I burned over 5,000 calories on that event. So one of the advantages I have is I can store a lot of muscle glycogen. I can consume a lot. My digestive system is good, so I can even eat while I go. Although I need more food than most people, I can consume a lot more. The other thing is the discipline. The bodybuilding allowed me to be disciplined to the doing of the now and understand what that leads to. Building muscle takes time. It doesn't equate from the work you do today. It equates from a repeated effort week after week, year after year, and even sometimes decade after decade. So having that understanding of my efforts consistently is ultimately what's going to lead to that progression. And then just, I think, having really good strength, and good power and good endurance, because I have done sport for a long time, and stamina. And the other thing I think, which is definitely an advantage, I don't know if it came from bodybuilding or it was just in me, was the willingness to endure suffering. You have to. Bodybuilding is a lot of suffering. You're neglected from nourishment often enough. You're in a caloric deficit. You're, very competitive, so you're training as hard as you can, but you can barely walk. So, you have to enjoy that suffer and cycling as much as it's completely different type of suffering. You go through a lot of pain, especially when you climbing up mountains or you sat on a thin saddle for hours on end. Your heart rate is really high, the lactic burn is really intense. So I think that experience throughout my bodybuilding definitely allowed me to transition into this type of sport and enjoy it, and almost get a kick from that, from the pleasure that can bring.
Actually, it's very interesting. I mean, like, although bodybuilding and cycling really look very different, they share the fact that both they need like a really strong will and resilience, and also a lot of endurance. So yeah, I mean that's quite interesting. And you talked about the fact that you are having like 15 or 14 or 15 hours a week like cycling. How about off training techniques, like off bike, sorry, training? Like, are you following some kind of techniques, or you have specific program for that?
Yeah, 100%. And also, I come from a background where I developed a really good muscular physique and a good posture and good core conditioning and a good strength and good stability, because I've been athletic for a big part of my life, and I've been competing in bodybuilding, and bodybuilding is all about balance and symmetry if you're doing it right. My point is that I am still putting in at least 2 sessions a week, most weeks, on my conditioning, on improving my cycling performance off the bike. So I'm doing like single leg movements. Actually, I made a transition from, and I mentioned this in a previous video, from bigger lifts into more isometric or unilateral type lifts that help with the cycling revolution. But also, a big part of my off the bike training is not just to improve my revolution and my economy through my lower body and my stability and my core strength to be in a position for so long, or my upper body strength to be able to sprint and use my upper body in synchronization to my legs, but also to prevent me from kind of getting injured, to improve or make sure I maintain a good posture. Because when you're sat down on a bicycle for the length of time while I've been sitting down on a bicycle, you can develop a lot of lower back problems, or inactive glutes, or tight hamstrings, or just poor digestive system. So a lot of the training I'm doing off the bike is to improve my cycling performance, but also to maintain good posture and prevent my injury. Charles Poliquin, who is the world's most recognized and renowned strength and conditioning coach, God bless him, God bless, rest his soul. He's passed away, but he's known in the industry to be the most credible. I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with him and learn from him. And what he told us, and I've read many articles where he claimed the same thing, is when he was working with skiers on the Olympic team, that they would be getting a lot of ankle injuries in the off season. And this was mainly due to the fact that during the season, they would be doing a lot of skiing and the ankles would be supported by the boots, right? So as much as the calves and the ankles wouldn't necessarily work much in the skiing, the issue they were having is when they were off season, they were like twisting the ankles and stuff. So a lot of his programs were also designed to prevent injury, because if an athlete gets injured, then they can't compete. And he actually developed a program, and I forget the Olympic skier, but what he wanted to do was to improve the skiers' circumference of their calves, so improve the calf size and strength, so when they land on the slope, they would have more protection from the boot and prevent injuries and take the stress off the knees. So the point that I'm making is, when you are very driven to be the best you can be at a particular sport, then you also have to weigh up the factor of, if you can no longer train or you get injured, then it's going to prevent you from achieving what you set out. So your training program needs to be holistic. You need to think, okay, what's going to help me in that sport? And what's going to help me outside that sport to make sure I can continue doing it? So to kind of circle back on the question, yes, I do in 2 hours a week of off the bike training. And my program is very progressive also. I'm working with improving my speed right now, my power. And I went through a phase where I was working on improving my strength. Whilst I was in the UK, I only went to the gym on the last day, and I was doing my workouts actually outdoors. And there's videos that I shared with you, and you obviously promoted and pushed through our page, where I would wake up in the morning while the family was still asleep. And although it was a slight rain, I would go into the garden or wherever we were, and I would do a little workout with my body and my bands. And that is efficient enough. But like I said, I have built the strength. I have built the stamina and the posture. And a lot of people that I see, whether that's into cycling or triathlon or running, they focus in so much of their time in the actual sport-specific training, and they're neglecting another important factor, and that is their longevity and well-being, and looking after this vehicle outside of the action that you're asking it to perform.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you mentioned, just having like sport specific program, I think it won't be enough until you add to that like a strength and conditioning program to make sure that off the bike also you're performing the right way, and all that build into the right direction, right? So yeah, I mean, I know also that you have a couple of clients who they're already doing cycling. So as like I mean, a bodybuilding or weightlifting coach, how's that can help you? Like I mean, how did you integrate off bike training for them, or how like is your own personal experience help you in building the program for them, or is it different for each person?
So first of all, I've had a fascination with like human performance since I was young, really. I mean, I always really like to challenge myself and to find out where my limits were. And when you have this desire, you're also asking yourself, okay, how can I push through, and how can I adapt, and how can I lift more or run faster or whatever I'm doing at the time. I always had a fascination to seeing how far I could push myself. It was something I realized, very young. So, like I said, this inspired me to invest in understanding the intricacies of the human body, the anatomy and the physiology, and how movement works and how the mind works, and where does motivation come from and how does a muscle actually engage. So my point is that once you understand this, it's quite easy to then understand what actions need to be in place to improve a particular movement pattern. So, like I said, when it comes to the cycling positioning, and you can see, okay, well, what's going on first of all? Well, there's a revolution, there's a circular motion going through the hips and the knees and the ankles somewhat, but to some degree only. Everything is powered through the ball of the foot in a stable position. So then you're like, okay, well, what of the muscles are working this revolution? Which part of the muscles do which part of the revolution? And you see there's a synchronization going on, but there's also there's a certain part of the revolution when one muscle is activated more. So then you can individually find out, well, where needs improvement. So which of them muscles are primary and which are secondary, and which ones are weak and which ones are strong. And you can only do this by either now, assessing somebody's movement pattern on the bike or off the bike. And then you build in the program around that. So, okay, which part of the revolution improves the glutes or activates the glutes? Which one are the quads? Which one is, the calves, the hamstrings, the hip flexors? And then you build a program. And then also you're looking like, well, okay, if the motion pattern is straight down, and I'm talking about this sport in particular, and there's less movement going through the hip joint because you want to power. If you are pushing out to the side, you're losing power. You want all that power to be directed down. Then you need good stability through the hip. You need good ankle stability. So then you need to improve that ankle stability if you don't have it. And then you look at, okay, well, what else needs to be improved? Well, you're in a position where the core has to be stabilizing the balance of the bike. Because if you're driving down through the revolution and you don't have good core stability, then you're going to create a rocking effect, which is going to stop you going in a straight line. And obviously it's going to affect your speed forward. And then you look, okay, well, what other muscles are working to be in this position for that length of time? And you start going, okay, well, what about the upper body endurance muscles? And then you also think, well, what is the consequence for this action? And like I said, it's preventing injury. But what happens to the hip flexors that are in this flex position for so long? Were they going to become tight? What happens to the abdominals when the lower back is rounded? Well, they're going to become tight. What happens to the chest? So your program design then needs to be considerate of what muscles actually are worked, what our muscles are neglected. And then also you have to consider the athlete himself or the person. And then that is where you need to do a thorough assessment and analysis and say, okay, well, these are the determinants that make somebody go faster and improve their power or be powerful, let's say. This is where you currently are. How do we bridge the gap, working on some of your weaknesses and improve and maintaining some of your strengths? And how do we ensure that this path and this journey that we're on is conducive for longevity? So, like I said, it really, I don't think it's as related to the bodybuilding. As much as the bodybuilding, you have to have a good understanding about how muscles work and about the training specifically, because you're trying to hit a particular muscle group or you're trying to contract a part of your quads with no weight. So you have to build a good understanding. I think it comes from a fascination with wanting to push to my limit and beyond. And then obviously that's where many people are, many clients I work with, whether that's a physical transformation they're looking for, or they're trying to go faster or be more efficient, or they're trying to run for a longer distance. Because I also work with I work with people who want a body transformation. I work with athletes, whether that be somebody preparing for a cycling event or a running event or, a tennis event. And it's the same. Once you understand anatomy and physiology and you understand how to use functional movement and how to build strength, how to build endurance, then you just look at, okay, what does that particular person need? And then you build a program that's very specific to them. It's going to get them to their specific goal.
That's perfect, actually. I mean, it's really interesting when you phrasing it this way. And I mean, it sounds also like a lot of physical training and physical preparation, which will take me to my next question. Like, how about the mental preparation? What does what role does mental preparation plays in your training regime for you yourself or for your own clients, specifically for like a long and demanding events like the Dragon Ride?
That's a great question, and it plays a huge role. And I think the biggest separation from the people at the top of the sport to the people that are chasing is the mental aspect. I'm not talking about people who can't get off the couch. I'm talking about when you at the particular level, it's usually a lot mental. Who's willing to train smart, who's willing to suffer more, so it definitely comes to that. Now, when it came to this particular event for me, the Dragon event, which I would like to talk a bit more on also because it was an incredible event. I was kind of going into the unknown to a degree. I've been training in Dubai, and Dubai is very flat. This event, it had 3,600 elevation. It was over 215 kilometers. I've done more than this in distance. I've done 225 kilometers, but I did that in Dubai, and that was flat. Also, I did that and I just took my time. I kind of did 2 hours, stopped, had a bit of a break, did 2 hours. And I've done something else similar to this, which is a coast to coast here in Dubai from actually Sharjah to Fujairah. And that has some hills, but no way as much elevation as I knew the Dragon event had. So whenever you're doing something that is, taking you into the unknown, there is some there is some anxiousness involved because you don't know what it's going to feel like. And I certainly was kind of preparing for the worst. I thought that I was going to suffer a lot. So I psychologically prepared myself for that. And I was willing to do that. I had a very good strategy. So I did feel confident that I could get to the finish line. It was never a question I wouldn't do it. I think what I didn't prepare for was two things really, which again learned me a lot psychologically, is the road conditions were very bumpy, and my lower back was hurting after 1 hour. I didn't suffer at all in my legs. My lungs were fine, my heart was fine, my energy levels were great. But my lower back, after like 1 hour of like constant impact of, going from tarmac to gravel and then over potholes, my lower back was really aching a lot. And at some point to the event, I was standing up deliberately just to take off the pressure on my back. So for like 6.5 hours of the event, my lower back was really painful because obviously, that's what happens when you're not used to this type of impact. But the second thing was I almost crashed, and if I had crashed, I would have definitely been in hospital, and potentially something could have been worse because, and again, it goes to the conditions. It was a little bit wet, and we were coming into a estate, so a rural area. And as I was coming around, where I came around and I went into a downhill, my wheel hit the drain and it slipped. And then I braked. And what happened is, as I was braking, I was sliding. And I started sliding and I had no control over the bike. And I was just sliding. I was trying to control it. I started heading towards a car that was parked, but it was parked because it was waiting for ongoing traffic, and it was on a downhill, and I was probably traveling around 50 kilometers an hour. If I had hit that, which I almost did, I managed to control myself and just miss it. And the guy started shouting at me. If I had hit it, I would have been in a really bad state. So psychologically, that was kind of early on in the ride. Psychologically, that definitely shook me up. I definitely was more conservative on the downhills because I wasn't prepared for this type of terrain. I don't know, and I don't have years of experience, so I don't really know how the tires are going to hold up on this type of road and these type of graveling. So psychologically, I was nervous going down all the hills because there was a lot of climbs, but when you go up, you come down. So you would climb for whatever it is, 8 kilometers, and then you would have a big descent. So a lot of people would pass me on the descent, and then I would catch them back up on the flat on the hill. So psychologically, that was a wake-up call and something that I'm going to be better prepared for moving forward into the next event. And it's all these things that sometimes, you don't really learn. You can be psychologically prepared for something. And what I've done previously, like I did this time, I go over the course. So I look at the course. If it's a shorter and more aggressive and a faster course, I kind of meditate and, understand, okay, well, what comes after this corner? Is it up? Is it down? And I really try to visualize that to create a mental picture. But some things you just can't prepare for. And it's all about how you respond to them. That is the determining factor of whether you move forward or go back. I mean, do I get off the bike when I almost crash? Do I go so slow and think, no, I learn from it. I be more thoughtful, more conservative. And actually in the moment, I look at it as a blessing because I'm like, wow, I just got knowledge and information I wasn't aware of. Like, I didn't know that that's what happens to the bike when you brake in the wet. Now I know through experience that if I'm turning the wheel and I brake, the wheel is going to slide. So psychologically, I think you can always aim to be prepared, but I think you grow the most when you're challenged with things that you have no idea on how to respond to, but you do and you learn from them.
That's you, definitely. I mean, like, I agree with you. Like, some of the things you can't be prepared for and you can't expect. But my question is, like, if you're gonna do it again, or if you are gonna advise someone who's going to do the same raid, what you gonna do better, like different, or what advice would you give to someone who's gonna do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm going to do it again because I signed up. My advice would be that some things are not worth the risk. Like, that's what I thought in my mind. I thought it's not worth the risk for me flying down an hill. It's not like I'm gonna, be on a podium and win money or, get an incredible. It's like, no, and you have to weigh up the pros and the cons from what you do. Okay, and it was like, okay, I like the challenge of pushing myself on the flat and up the hill, and I can learn somewhat from going downhill and taking corners, but I'm not going to risk everything for very little reward. So that's advice what I would give somebody else. I would say, take your time on the way down. It's not the Tour de France. It's not the World Championships. It's an event, and you're doing it for people that are suffering. So don't become one of them. Don't end up in hospital and have people prey on you. You know what I mean? That's honestly the genuine advice I would give somebody is take your time a little bit on the way down because there's a lot of potholes, there's a lot of drains, there's a lot of slippery things, and it's honestly not worth the risk. Now, when I've had clients prepare for certain things like photo shoots or events where there's a big nervousness involved because they're going into the unknown, or that could be a bodybuilding competition where they're going on stage for the first time. You can give them advice like visualizing themselves somewhere else or why they're doing it. But often enough, people have to experience it to then learn how to control it. And some things, it doesn't matter what you psychologically say to yourself or the preparation you have, overcoming that anxiety within and that fear and that desire to quit is part of the experience. So you almost don't want to neglect an opportunity to have that. You know what I mean? You want to be, you want that to be part of the challenge. Like, I didn't want to jump out of the aeroplane, but I did it anyway. And the biggest reward I got from it was actually doing it, although I didn't want to do it, you know? Rather than, okay, this is how you have to think now when you jump out of the plane, you have to think like you're going to land on, I don't know, handy floss, whatever. Part of that is is part of the benefit from doing it, I think, because Will Smith said something in one of the interviews he did when he was talking about his trip to Dubai when he did a skydive, and I don't know if you saw that. He talked about the fear of actually jumping out of the plane whilst I'm on the subject. And he says, like, God places, well, I don't know exactly what he said, the quote, but it was like, on the other side of your biggest fears is where the most pleasure lies. The bliss in the moments is when you overcome your biggest fears. So, that's part of it. I would encourage people to welcome it. People going on stage for the first time on a photo shoot and they're really uncomfortable going into an event that they're really afraid that they're going to crash or that they might come last or whatever. Good, because that experience is going to teach you so much about yourself that you wouldn't know unless you did that type of thing. I hope that kind of helps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is answer my question. I mean, it's really fascinating. The much of the details you're telling me about this event, and although it's sounds really intense and challenging, it's like I'm really glad that you gone through that experience and come up with, like you said, too many. How can I say, benefits and insights for your own like journey and in your life in general. So I would like to conclude this conversation with the question is, what is your future plan for like a cycling journey? What do you have? Like, do you have more cycling events coming up, or how's your the near future look for this your cycling training?
Somebody asked me a few weeks ago, not very long ago, maybe 2 weeks. So I cycle with a group, and what tends to happen is I tend to go out earlier than them. And I do a lot, and then sometimes I jump with them, because if I'm trying to do a long ride and they do 2 hours, I might cycle for 2 hours before, right? And one of the guys asked me, he says, like, what are you cycling for? Have you got an event? Are you preparing to something? And if you got asked that question about me, you would say, yeah, he's preparing for the Dragon Ride. And I said to him, I'm actually preparing to be the fittest I can be. And that's the biggest truth. So, I've been kind of the biggest I can be and the strongest I can be. Maybe I got to push the boundaries a bit more, but as big as I wanted to be. Now I'm on a pursuit to see how fit I can get and how fast I can go on. And I'm on this pursuit. So along that way, I have many events. Like, I have a trip in 5 weeks where I go to France and I cycle on some of the Tour de France routes, which I'm really excited about. It was actually a trip I won. In 8 weeks from now, just under, I go to Denmark and I compete in the World Championship. So that's a big motivation. But all these, like, even after that, then I come back to Dubai. It's kind of race season. So you'll have the Spinnies challenge and part of the Revolution team. So I'm looking forward to racing for them. There's loads of races in Dubai, so I'll be doing as many of them as I can. And these also favor me because, I'm a thicker guy, I'm a more powerful guy, I'm not very light. So when it comes to the hills, etc., as much as I kind of felt like I managed them well, my strength really lies on the rolling hills or the flats. So I can be very selective about my races. That all being said, it's all working towards me aiming to be as fit as I can be. And I probably said to myself from not so long ago, actually this year, that I'm giving myself like 2 years of investment just to see how fit I can be, just to go, okay, well, I know what it's like to be really, really fit. I know what it's like to cycle for that long. I know what it's like to climb that mountain. So that's the objective and that's the goal. And like I said, along the way, there's many things. And I was thinking about this in bed last night, really. I was thinking, whenever I've been preparing for an event, like I've competed in the World Championships before when I was doing bodybuilding, I actually came fifth in the World Championships. I went to Malta and represented the UK, and that was a really big achievement and something I'm very proud of. But I don't have the same pressure going into this World Championships. And in fact, I don't have none of the same pressure I had when I was doing bodybuilding. And I think that's for two reasons. Throughout my bodybuilding, I was always, it's like I had an end goal. I was trying to look a certain way or I was trying to win something. And because I'm doing this just because I'm enjoying it, and I'm not like, okay, I have to win this competition and I'm doing it because I want to come whatever. Because it's like a personal quest of just seeing how powerful I can become on the bike and how fit I can become on the bike. And because I'm more fixated and focused on my business, my CWPT company and how can I achieve my business goals, my financial goals, how can I help people globally achieve the look or result that they want? So how can I build this? Because more of my time is going into that, and also I'm, growing a family. I'm not really thinking too much about like I need to achieve this in the bike for me to get a satisfaction. I'm getting a satisfaction from every time I go out. Every ride I do, I enjoy, even if it's grueling. Every week I see a progression. I'm excited. So yeah, I have a lot planned in the next couple of weeks, probably in the next few years. I don't know how long I could keep the cycling going like I'm doing because, I started cycling recreationally. My personality favors me to get very competitive. And this sport is very aggressive. I mean, when you're in a peloton and you're in a fast peloton, and I'm fortunate I'm not incredible by any means, but I'm fast enough to ride in the fast groups when it comes to these races. So I'm at the start line and I'm there. And my point is, it's chaotic. It's like, I heard this from somebody else, so I don't know who it was, so I can't mention his name, but it's like being in a traffic jam, going at 55 kilometers an hour. There's bikes everywhere, and often enough you can't even take your eyes off the front. You become so alert. So the point is, probably after like 2-3 years of doing that, I'm gonna think like, what the hell was you thinking to be like putting yourself at that much risk where all it would take is a little clip in the back wheel and you're over the handlebars in hospital. So I would still continue to probably ride, but I would need something else. That's the gift and the curse with my personality. The gift is that I invest my time into what I enjoy to do when I become very competitive, and I somewhat become pretty good at it because I invest so much energy into it. But the curse is I need that stimulation all the time. So if I wasn't doing something like this, I'd be trying to beat everybody at chess or something, like, you know what I mean? They're on the chess club with the old men, like, you know what I mean? Trying to get them in, like, and I'll be like, coming home, I said to Carl every day, I'd be coming home and be like, yeah, love, I had a great game today. Oh, this one guy, after 4 hours, I took his queen, I'd be like that type of guy, like, you know what I mean? She doesn't give a shit. She'd be like, yeah, great. wow, it's amazing, isn't it? Thinking in the end, like, oh, okay, you're into chess now. Last week it was bowls, you know?
Yeah, actually, that's really yeah. I mean, it's your drive, your personality. I mean, even when you're done with cycling, definitely you're gonna find something else more challenging to do. I know you, man. Can't see it as a bad thing after all. I mean, it's who you are. So
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's all passion driven. That's the thing. And I think that's the point of what I was just trying to get to. Like, I'm at a stage in my life, and part of it is age related, and another part of it is from experience. But I'm really just more appreciative of the now, and I realize that's where the pleasure lies, is in the moment. It's not in the future or in the past. It's literally in the moment, and you can find pleasure in every moment. And I think what the bodybuilding taught me, and I had the gift that was given to me on my birthday, really, where I kind of reminisced back through I don't know if I told you this, but anyway, I realized that throughout my bodybuilding, what started to happen is I started on this quest to look a certain way, and then I found myself competing. And then as soon as I started becoming more competitive with other people and wanting to win, I started to lose the pleasure out of the training. I still trained and I still loved to push myself, but the experience became a lot more negative than positive. And I started seeing how that could easily translate into the cycling, because I didn't start cycling to be competitive. I started from enjoyment. And as I started getting more progressive, I started becoming competitive. So now that I found myself in the same position, it's just when I reminisce back from my bodybuilding years, and I realized at this stage, when I started becoming more competitive, it was more about winning and not trying to lose, and actually about just enjoying the building and the cutting. Then I have to make sure that I don't continue that mindset into something else. So that's what I'm doing, really. I'm just really enjoying it, and yeah, I have no aspirations really when it comes to where I would like to take my cycling. It's more about where I would like to take my body. And right now, I would like to be as fit as I can be, and I'm using the cycling as a tool to help me achieve it.
yeah, I mean, it's a really great way to see to how you see it. It's after all, like you said, it's a pleasure, and at the same time, it's giving meaning to your I mean, to your sports or to your time as well. Like so many people I know, they've wasted their life in something, then they just feel empty after they finish it, like probably work or getting retired. So yeah, I can understand the idea, like the reason behind having something passionate like that in your life and give time for it. So what you can say as a to conclusion for this?
Well, I would like to thank everybody that was behind the event that I did in Wales, and really, I commend you. It was just incredible. I mean this with no biased opinion. It was the best organized event I ever did, and I'm just so thankful I did it. It was really incredible. I can't speak enough about it. I mean, this medal right here, like, I'm so proud to hold this, and that is because I'm Welsh. Just incredible. Anybody who's watching this, check out the Dragon Challenge. I mean, there's 4 different events, as in like 4 different courses, and they start obviously shorter with less elevation, and then they move up. And the one I did, which was the Gran Fondo, was the one below the toughest. I actually wanted to do the toughest, which is called the Devil Ride, and this one is just 295 kilometers, 4,500 elevation, so a lot more climbing, a lot more time in the saddle. And the tickets were sold out. They were sold out very early. So when I finished this event, literally when I got an email the next day to say that I can reserve a slot for next year. I did it straight away. I reserved a slot for the Dragon Ride, so I'm going to be doing the bigger one. I'm also then going to be raising money for cancer, the same support organization that I worked with, and I will continue to promote them because they're doing a fantastic job. The other thing that they send me on a pretty much weekly basis, because I ask them to, is an update to where that money is being spent. What are they doing in the community? Some of the things that they are using the money for, and they're giving reviews on what people are saying, and it's just Macmillan. I'm just making sure my mind's a little bit fuzzy right now. So they're doing a fantastic job. And anybody who wants to do this ride, I would definitely look into that, and also support them and do it for a good cause. That's what I would say. It was a fantastic ride. I'm going to be doing it next year. If anybody wants any information about that, then you can reach out to me, Christian Williams PT. You can find me on pretty much most platforms. Instagram I use more frequently. You can check out our website as well, which is CWPT. If anybody needs any help and guidance with the psychological support or the training structure, either for an event like this, I'm not a cycling coach, but I know how to design plans to help you on the bike by working off the bike. And that could be anybody that needs any help with any transformation of such. You can visit our website, you can check our Instagram. And kind of probably the last thing that I want to say is I thank anybody that kind of listens to me. We always try to share our experiences, and we honestly are doing that just to try to inspire and motivate those willing to listen. So I want to thank you for your time listening to me kind of babble on about my experience. I want to thank you, NASA, for spending the time to put these questions together and to sit with me and to bring content to the media. And I would say the last thing that I would not thank somebody for, but I would ask them for, is to share this information. If you felt like this video and this content was beneficial to you and you had some good insights for it, even if it was for 1 minute of the entire video, share it with somebody else. Share the link to a friend, to somebody else from Wales, to somebody else who's getting into cycling, from somebody else who needs some motivation on how to manage their anxiety when it comes to events. Because sharing is caring, and that's the incentive behind why we are sat right here, is to share our experience, share our knowledge, share our inspiration, and move forward collectively together, pushing the boundaries of the human race. We are the Power Rangers. So thank you, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's so welcome. It was quite fun, to be honest. Like, I mean, I didn't know anything before about cycling until I know you. So honestly, before cycling sounds, I'm not gonna say boring, but not really interesting. Yeah, but I mean, since I know you and you told me especially about the strategies and how they like teams like assure winning and everything, it sounds really interesting, to be honest.
It is, and I didn't know until I got into it. It's a very tactical and aggressive sport. I mean, the Tour de France is on right now, and if you haven't watched the Netflix series of the Tour de France, watch it, because it's just really entertaining, inspiring, and you get to understand that it's an all team sport. They're all working together, and they all have different roles and there's different strategies. And although these guys, like I said, I'm a big guy, most of these guys are very skinny because, well, they started at a young age, usually at 15, even less. So before they kind of matured well, they were already racing, and they were already more than likely cutting their food to be light. So they miss out on that muscular development because they're on the bike, they're not in the gym, or they're doing these type of things. So although they look skinny, they're machines, like, it's like the equivalent of the world's strongest man, but on a bicycle.
On a bike, yeah.
So they don't look like that, but I mean, the amount of power and endurance they can go through is just incredible. So watch that. And yeah, the community of cycling is growing in Dubai hugely. We are working on a online course, as you know, where we are putting our minds together, me with my experience and my understanding on how to take somebody from A to B, and your ability to structure that and to graphic design it in a, very compatible format that people can uptake that information. And that's an exciting venture we're on, that we're doing now with many different courses. So those watching this that don't really know about that, visit CWPT. You can click on the bottom. There's a subscription to our newsletter. The newsletter goes out, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. You'll be updated on this type of information, but also we share a lot of educational content. We share snippets of videos like this. We share ideas on how to hydrate yourself well during the summer months here in Dubai. Whatever it is, we're always looking to improve that our other people's awareness of how to be the best version of themselves. So, yalla, let's do it.